Hello and welcome back to another episode of the DIYguy.net. Alright, today we're going to be showing you how to replace your battery in your Generac portable generator. This one here has been left on battery tender for a while and it does not hold a charge. Once we remove the battery tender and try to start it, it doesn't even click. So this battery has been dead for a long time or has been frozen while it was dead, so it's no longer holding a charge at all. So this is the XG series. The battery is located right here, bolted within this front panel, right next to the handle and your muffler. So in order to get that front panel off, we're going to need to remove these 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. Kind of let that panel slide forward and out of the way, as there's a bolt right behind it. We're also going to loosen the back 2 gas tank bolts and remove the front 2, as it actually goes into that panel we're trying to remove to gain access to the battery. And on the other side, there's the same thing as this panel without your plugs in it. So remove those 4 bolts, remove that rear panel completely, and set it aside, as we need to gain access to those 2 half-inch bolts on the left and right side of our front cover. So to start, we're going to need a 3/16 Allen wrench or key. That way we can remove those 8 bolts from the front and back panel. Now that we have that set aside, we'll remove those 2 half-inch gas tank bolts. A ratcheting wrench works well for that. So we finished removing the front gas tank bolts completely. We also loosened the back gas tank bolts 2 or 3 turns just to let the gas tank pivot upwards. We also went ahead and put zip ties through the outlet of the gas tank and across to hold our gas tank up and out of the way. That way when we do remove that front panel to get to the battery, the gas tank's not going to fall down. Like I said, we could have used mechanics wire, but we didn't want to scratch the finish on the generator frame, so we went with the zip ties. So with our gas tank held in position, we can grab a 3/8 wrench. What we're going to need to do is remove the 3/8 bolt that is directly in the center of the panel. What it does is hold the shield in place under the gas tank to stop the heat from rising up and going right up against the gas tank. So we're going to move the camera a little bit, we'll remove that bolt, then we'll remove the 2 half-inch bolts on each side of the front panel, letting it fall down so we can gain access to the battery. Alright, so we got a 3/8 wrench. The bolt is right here, right along the edge of the muffler. We'll go ahead and remove that so the heat shield is not attached to this panel, and then we can go ahead and remove those half-inch bolts from each side to get the panel to come off. That's how long that bolt is. Alright, so now that we got that bolt removed, we can go ahead and remove the half-inch bolts from the side. This is where the ratcheting wrench really comes in handy, as we're going to use this half-inch ratcheting wrench to get this bolt out. If you use a ratchet and a socket, that's that much more stuff you try to get in there, where you're going to be pushing your panel out, and you could risk damaging your choke cable or unconnecting any of the wires from your main panel. You can see how long that bolt is. So like I said, if you got a socket on top of that, then the head of the ratchet, you're pushing your front panel pretty far away. So on the back side, you can use whatever we want, because we actually have this back panel removed, but we'll still use the ratcheting wrench. And you want to be holding this when you remove that last bolt, as the weight of the battery will pull it down. Once you pull this open a little bit, you notice that the wires are nice and zip tied up here. You're going to want to cut that zip tie so you can let a little bit of that slack out, or you can actually just disconnect your battery tender wires there, and then you'll be able to kind of roll it out. Alright, so we got our front panel flipped down. As you can see, we've left this corner kind of pushed inward so we're not pulling any of the cables. We disconnected our battery tender leads. We zip tied this side up just because we're by ourselves and help it from sliding around and moving around on us too much. If we had someone else, we'd have someone else hold this front panel while we disconnect the battery. So that's what we're going to do next, is disconnect the battery or the leads off our battery. So for that, we're going to need a 1/4 inch ratchet and a 5/16 socket and a 5/16 wrench. So now that we got the battery terminals, or leads removed, we can go ahead and loosen this battery bracket. That way we can pull the battery upward and out. So we're just going to add a extension to our setup here, our 1/4 inch ratchet and our 5/16 socket, and we'll go ahead and loosen those 5/16 bolts that hold our battery bracket in position. Alright, so we can just lift up on the battery once we have the battery bracket loose enough. Here's the old battery we just removed. It is a 12 volt, 10 amp hour battery. We'll see what the new one is when we unpackage it. We got it sent directly from Generac. Alright, so we got our new battery. The part number is 0G9449. It's a 12 volt sealed battery. So we'll go ahead and pop this open. Like I said, we got this sent directly from Generac as a replacement. We can see on this one that it's a 12 volt like the other one, but this one is a 9 amp hour battery. So it's a little bit less. I've seen a lot of people switching to the 9 amp hour battery as these are a little more common. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and install it. So it'll be the same thing. We're just going to lift our bracket, slide it in there, and then reconnect our leads. Do not forget to do your battery tender leads. Get that one on there. These two are still together, so that's good. We'll go ahead and grab the ratchet and the socket and snug them up. Alright, so now that we have our leads connected, we'll go ahead and snug down the battery holder. Alright, so now that we got our battery hold down, snug down, and the battery's not going anywhere, we can go ahead and tighten our leads on our battery. We're going to start with the negative first, and then we'll do the positive. When doing the positive, make sure your ratchet or your wrench doesn't touch anything, as you don't want it to short out. So this side panel needs to go above and rest on this panel. So we'll go ahead and lift that up as we slide this front panel back in position. Go ahead and line the front side, slide this bolt back in as well. Alright, so we got both side bolts started. Our heat shield is sitting on top of the inner side of this. That way the 3/8 bolt will go up and through and thread into it and hold it in position. We can go ahead and snug down these side bolts, holding our front panel back in position. Alright, so now we got the front panel bolted on. We got those 2 1/2-inch bolts, one on this side and one on the other side tight. We can go ahead and cut this zip tie. We'll lower the gas tank back down. We'll reinstall those front 2 gas tank bolts. And then we'll snug all 4 gas tank bolts because we loosened the back just to let it pivot. And then we'll go ahead and reinstall the back cover here and then work on the front. So we'll just get a pair of dikes. What we're going to do is just cut the zip tie. Alright, so we started both the gas tank bolts by hand. We'll go ahead and grab that 1/2-inch ratcheting wrench and snug them down the rest of the way. So we spun the generator around. We're going to go ahead and install the back panel here first. You want to make sure you have your 4 spacers or grommets in position before you go ahead and put the panel in. You want to make sure your lettering is going the right way. We'll grab our 3/16 Allen head bolts. We'll go ahead and put the cover where it needs to be. Got the generator spun around. We're ready to reinstall our front panel. Make sure you connect your battery tender leads. You can reach up through here and hold your panel in position and reconnect them. Also check any of your other wiring to make sure it's not become unplugged. You also want to make sure you don't kink the fuel line on the other side. Make sure your grommets or spacers are in position as well. So we'll go ahead and raise it up. We'll go in behind here and reconnect our battery tender. So this way the battery will be ready to go when we need it. Same thing as the other side. We're going to go on the outside of our end panels and below our gas tank. So we'll push it in. Grab our bolts. Go ahead and start them all by hand. So we finished installing the front panel. We made sure our battery tender leads were connected. We also didn't pull any other wires apart while we were in there. Next we're going to go ahead and spin the generator. We're going to reinstall that 3/8 bolt to hold that heat shield in place between the engine and the gas tank. Alright, so with that 3/8 bolt reinstalled, holding that heat shield in position, we have no extra parts, so we got everything back together. We're ready to go ahead and push it outside and test it and see if the battery will start the generator. Alright, so we got the generator pushed outside in a well-ventilated area. If you haven't checked your oil in a while, check your oil level, make sure it's good before you start it. So we're ready to start this one. We'll go ahead and turn our gas on, pull out our choke, and fire it up. Alright, so as you saw, this one started right up, so this battery is working. We'll probably plug it in for a little while in the battery tender just to top up the battery because we're not sure how much juice the battery actually has. Something to think about when using the battery tender is if you use the generator often, you can just plug the battery tender into the generator while you're using the other outlets to do other things or the project you're doing. That way it'll top up the battery. You can always plug it into the wall here and there periodically. You don't want to leave it on the tender all the time. I don't believe this one has the auto shut off once it's fully charged. So something you can do though, which I would recommend doing, is getting a 7-day timer, plugging the battery tender into that, programming it so it comes on for a couple hours, 1 day out of the week. That way the timer will keep going around and around, and once a week it'll charge up the battery or top it off. That way it's fully charged and ready to go when you need it. So another thing you do is buy a battery tender junior, wire it into your battery while you're replacing your old battery. That way you can plug that right into the wall. What's nice about that one is it gives you a reading that it's actually charging the battery, or the battery is in good health. It also tells you the level of the charge of the battery, and also you can leave that one plugged in and it won't overcharge your battery. It'll kind of moderate itself. That's one poor thing about this Generac. It doesn't have any indication whether that AC to DC converter box is actually putting power into that battery tender spot, whether your battery is actually getting charged, the level of the battery, and that you have to remove it so you're not overcharging the battery as it doesn't cycle on and off like a battery tender would. Don't forget to click the link in the description, which will take you to our website for a full write-up. You can also click that subscribe button in the middle. On the right we have a recommended video just for you, and on the left you'll find our recent upload. Thanks for watching another episode of the DIYguy.net.